there's creative, and then there is creative. Our next speaker, Gabriel Akon, Diaspora, is a poet, sonic activist, storyteller, and the king of new beginnings. Welcome to the stage, Diaspora.
Thank you so much. The king of new beginnings, I like that. I've never heard that one before. Can you guys hear me properly back there? All right, beautiful. I will start like this. Welcome to the mind of a young black African king, Diaspora, man from original skin, born to a lost world, but we're destined to win. Let it begin. Dome full of thoughts and the knowledge it brings, acknowledging things that make us unique. If you get knocked down, bounce back to your feet. And if you ever get lost, just follow the beat. Let's talk, let the poetry speak. And when you're looking at the stars, I hope you're noticing me. My story is deep, I'm hoping you're digging. The glory that I seek is barely just a figment of my imagination. I'm about to make it happen. Watch me change a nation. Really hold it down like Isaac Newton's equation, cause they don't understand the gravity of my situation. My name is Edijuk Majarakon. Over here I got known as Gabriel Akon, and then later on professionally as Diaspora. I come from a land called Kem, ancient Kemet, the kingdom of Kuch, modern day Egypt, on the river Nile, the cradle of civilization. Where I was born is a different story. I was born in the middle of a war, in the middle of a jungle, in the middle of a famine, and with all diseases you could think about. So this was in South Sudan, right around 1993. You see, my mother had been walking from Ethiopia, trying to get to the next country which was safe, which was Kenya. And she'd been walking for 3 months in those jungles. With me, she was holding me, and my brother and my sister by her side. Luckily, and by the grace of the Creator, we made it through, and also bullets flying on top of her head. We made it through to the next camp, which was Kakuma refugee camp in the mid-90s. And I was 2 months old when we arrived there and proceeded to spend the next 8 years of my life in desolate situations down there. You see, Kakuma refugee camp is located in northeast of Kenya. It's in a dry and arid environment where the Turkana people live. Most of my life, I don't recall seeing grass anywhere. So that should kind of paint the picture of what it was like over there. When I was in the camps, I had a sense of gratefulness because a lot of our people died in the war, and we were somewhat the lucky ones because we made it to a refugee camp. And I didn't really think there was nothing wrong with that because that's the only childhood that I knew, and you're only as good as what you know. But then over time, I started seeing some of my peers, my age, start to pass away from preventable diseases and lack of nutrition and lack of access to doctors and services. As I look in this room right now, I just wish in my heart of hearts, some of you were there with your professionalism and your skill sets, and a lot less children would have died during that time. Anyway, before I digress, after 8 years in that refugee camp and seeing that much pain, especially happening to mostly children, I decided in that moment that when I get older, I'm going to be a doctor, just like you guys here. And with that decision, it was informed by the simple fact that if there was someone with that skill set, we could have saved so many lives, because some of the diseases they were dying from was so preventable, it's heartbreaking. At that time, I had an uncle who went on to go to Norway and become an orthopedic surgeon, and he was always my inspiration for that path. So with that goal in mind, as a kid in the refugee camp with lack of access to any education, I said, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to channel my inner Nelson Mandela right now and remind everyone, which you guys already know, education is still the fastest way out of poverty. So when it came to our studies, we took it very seriously because we knew that could be the only thing that gets us out of that desolation. 8 years into the camp, we started losing hope, not knowing, are we going to spend the rest of our lives here? what's going to become of us, because you're not allowed to leave the refugee camp, you're not allowed to work in there, you're just stuck in limbo until hopefully your country stops warring or something miraculous happens. Well, in my case, something miraculous did happen. I have a superhuman of a mother. She genuinely smuggled me and my brother and my sister out of a refugee camp. Do you guys know how hard it is to smuggle a human being anywhere, let alone across a refugee camp and borders? Well, my mother's that kind of woman. So while my father was freedom fighting for our country, she was fighting for our lives. And we ended up in a small village in Kenya called Berea for 2 years, and that was probably the most normal phase of my whole life, because now we didn't know what poverty was, and now we had a sense of normalcy, so that was cool for a while. And then the second journey of my life started. You see, we'd been applying for humanitarian visas for the whole time we were there. We applied to go to America, didn't have much of a chance. We applied to go to Canada, didn't get that either. We applied to go to Norway, didn't get that. When you're a refugee, people don't understand. It doesn't matter where you go, you just want to get out of the environment you're in and find new beginnings. And luckily, under the humanitarian visa program, Australia accepted us as refugees. So make some noise for Australia for being real ones on that. Now, coming off the plane was an interesting thing for me, and I thought all my struggles are over. We made it to Australia, you know, no more being hungry, we got shelter, we got food, we got education, and I truly appreciated Australia for that. It gave my mother and my family a place to live. But little did I know that my journey had just started again, and this was survival part 2. Until I came here, I had no idea what racism was. I didn't know that this country, for no reason unbeknownst to me, had problems with my beautiful, dark, smooth chocolate skin. So it didn't make sense to me, because our people, we're very culturally connected, and we believe in the idea of community. And coming from the cradle of civilization, when I look at everyone here, from whether it's Asia or Middle East or Europe or Africa, we all come from one location. So our people truly understand that, coming from that cradle of civilization. So the idea of hating another human being was foreign to me. Yet here I was in Australia. It quickly dawned on me that Australia hasn't had a very good track record with the idea of blackness. I had to learn about laws like terra nullius, when they considered indigenous people flora and fauna, which breaks my heart to this day. And I also became aware of policies like White Australia policy, which for so long kept the migration here strictly to just Europeans. You see, the White Australia policy I'm familiar with, because it is one of the foundations and basis in which the South African government used to create its apartheid regime. As Australians, we should be ashamed at the fact that we were so good at racism, other countries started copying us. That is heartbreaking. Anyway, I learned very quickly that survival does not end, and I must go back to survival mode. And there's 2 things that I used. The first one was sports. You see, back in the refugee camps, you put a soccer ball in between anybody. Doesn't matter where they're from or what they look like. Sometimes we'll make our makeshift ball from gloves, surgical gloves, wrap it up until it becomes a proper soccer ball. And for hours, we'll forget that we're in poverty, that we're hungry, and that we're refugees. So the power of sports always remained in my mind. So when I came here, I realized that if I can be really good at a sport, such as soccer, as soon as I put it down, whether it's a kid from Seoul, Korea, a kid from Buenos Aires in Argentina, a kid from Juba in South Sudan, or an Aussie kid from Murray Bridge, we all get along because of that ball. So that was a connection. The second connection was music. You see, music gave me the incentive to learn this language even quicker. I realized really quickly, because of rhythm and poetry, if I can learn 1 word, I'll be incentivized to learn 3, which will expedite my process in learning English. So I took that on, and I hate being misunderstood. So music really helped me become understood. And that's not the end of my story. You see, the first part of my story was survival. All my life I had to survive, and I got tired of just surviving. I knew I was on this earth for a bigger ikigai and a bigger purpose. than just to survive. So I realized, you know what? I'm going to thrive. So with that mind state, I developed an alter ego, somewhat of a superhero called Diaspora, the king of new beginnings apparently. And I ultimately strengthened myself using all my pain that I've already been through. So the first thing I did is, as Diaspora, I broke down cultural barriers and cultural norms because I realized as humanity, we should not have divide between each other. And as Diaspora, I started making music and slowly started getting recognition. And 13 years after I came to Australia, as Diaspora, I won Best Artist of South Australia at the Music Awards. The second thing I did with the Diaspora identity is I realized I had to create a voice for my own people. So I started a record label called Playback 808. And then after that, I started working with different organizations to try and bring more light to the refugee situation. You see, I have somewhat of a survivor's guilt or survivor's remorse. Yes, I made it out of those camps, but I still have family members that are there right now. Only 2% of refugees get resettled across the world. And there's more than 60, 70 million refugees right now. And it's very hard to go to sleep knowing such a fact. So I've been trying to do everything I can about that. As Diaspora, I partnered up with Dr. Mel Bark of the Tim Pugh Foundation. And the last couple of years, we've been helping put more than 1,000 kids through school in South Sudan. And as Diaspora, I also partnered up with one of my brothers, Awir Mabil from the Socceroos, and decided to build the first ever recording studio in the same camp that we came from. And with that, he went on to actually bring in some baby incubators to that camp. So using sports and music, who knew who could get us so far? And as Diaspora, my next target is to try and eliminate racism, or at least lessen its effects on humanity. You see, racism is the cancer of humanity. That's what Einstein said. And everything sounds better when Einstein says it, so there you go. I think if we could all unite, we can make this world a better place. Because coming here, I represent the new Australians. I call them Australians. You see, kids and people that just want to belong but get pushed to the fringe of your society based on what they look like, what they sound like, and what they worship. When I succeed, personally, I've seen this happen in my life. When I succeed, I'm Australian. When I fail, I'm African. When I succeed, I'm Australian. When I fail, I'm African. What does that say about the society that I'm in? And which path should I choose, especially if I want to belong in a country like this? I implore every single human being in here and outside there to at least give these young kids or new Australians or Australians a chance. These are the same kids that just want a fair go when they go to school and get bullied for the color of their skin, or for wearing a hijab, or for whatever they believe in or what they eat at home. Kids that want a fair go when they end up trying to apply for work, but because their name is not Matthew or Thomas, no offense to any Matthews or Thomases in here, they end up getting, the brunt of the stick, and they don't get the same opportunities. See, I'm here now. I've been here for almost 2 decades, and I've learned one thing. If we don't move together as humanity, the human race will forever stay stagnant. So I present the whole concept of the humanity tree. Every single one of us here belongs on the humanity tree. Luckily, there's been foundations already planted in the roots of humanity, but every one of us can add a leaf, if not a branch. And if you don't find the opportunity to add a leaf or a branch to the humanity tree, do us all one favor and try not to take away from it and break it, because humanity is all we have. And with that said as well, there's an ancient African proverb that I live with. A child who's not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. A child who's not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. And as most of you will know, working with children, they are literally our future to our humanity. So as we work with children in the cities or in the rural areas, please let us not forget about the refugees' kids as well, because they deserve a chance. That's my refugee story. And do you guys want to listen to some raps?
Yeah.
That is not enthusiastic. This is... Whoever started that whistle, I gotta talk to you later. That was brilliant. You got them going. All right, you ready, DJ guy? Or should I get this started? Turn my mic up a little bit so the people at the back can hear me. A bit higher. Check.
I go by the name of Diaspora.
New beginnings.
Yeah. Let's go. Playback in the building.
808, we're in the
building. Life gets hard, but I'm kicking along. If it's easy, then you're living it wrong. Beast mode, yeah, I'm switching it on. Play back, cause they never press skipping a song. When I write, I imagine you singing along to the songs that I'm making. And it's gorgeous, sounds so amazing. Where you been, that's the word through the nation. Try to be a doctor, lost my patience. Went back home, quick vacation. Back for myself, exile with motivation. All these rappers in Oz been faking, but you're looking at the real sensation. Think we gotta have a real conversation about the racist cops in the station, trying to lock the dice up on some fake shit. 5 on me and the ground started shaking. Couldn't find a single law that I'm breaking. Got me feeling like Pac, notoriously big. Looking for the truth to give it back to the kids. No competition, the human race is rigged. Yeah, and they expect us to run. Some fail, but I adopted your tongue. Learned your ways, all I need to survive is the heat from the sun. Little bit of love and the beat of the drum. Play number 2, now I'm really about to shine. Can't you see I'm the one? See I'm the one, can't you see I'm the one? See I'm the one, can't you see I'm the one? Chameleon, what I see I become, chasing the millions. We just begun. I am the one, yes I am the one.
I can't hear y'all, man. What?
I can't fucking hear you out of line.
I appreciate you guys. One more thing.
Fucking beautiful, man.
We're gonna do some Q&A. Don't forget the bubbles. Love you guys.